At 82, I've learned a lot about life. Some lessons have come with time, others with experience. But there's one decision I wish I could go back and reconsider: moving into a nursing home. At the time, it felt like the right choice. My family encouraged me, promising I'd have all the care and comfort I could ever need. And I believed them. It sounded reassuring, a place where professionals would look after me, where I wouldn't have to worry about the everyday burdens anymore. But once I arrived, it didn't take long for me to realize that the reality was nothing like what I had imagined. That's why I'm sharing this with you today. I know many of you might be thinking about this option, whether for yourself or for someone you care about. Maybe it seems like the safest decision, or maybe you've been told it will make life easier. Before you take that step, I want to share 6 things I wish someone had told me before I moved in. Because the truth is, life in a nursing home isn't just about convenience. It changes everything. And once you're there, getting out is not as simple as you might think. Stay with me through this entire video. Some of these lessons may surprise you. And if you know someone considering a nursing home, this might be exactly what they need to hear before making a decision that will change their life. Let's begin. The first regret I have is losing my independence. The biggest shock wasn't the small room or the set meal times or even the unfamiliar faces. It was realizing that I had given up control over my own life. Before I moved in, I had my routines. I chose when to wake up, when to eat, and how to spend my day. I could take a walk whenever I wanted, cook my favorite meals, or simply sit quietly in my chair with a good book. But inside the nursing home, I quickly realized that my time was no longer my own. Everything ran on a schedule that wasn't set by me. Breakfast was served at a fixed hour, whether I was hungry or not. The lights went out at a certain time, whether or not I was ready to sleep. Even simple things like taking a walk outside required permission and coordination. And choices, like what to eat or what to wear, started to feel like privileges instead of basic freedoms. I remember my first week vividly, waking up in a bed that didn't feel like mine. I sat up, stretched, and instinctively reached for the book I'd been reading at home. But when I looked around, it hit me, this wasn't my home. My books, my chair, the little comforts I had collected over the years, they were gone. In their place were sterile walls, a bed I hadn't chosen, and a lingering feeling I couldn't shake. I was no longer in charge of my life. The hardest part, realizing that once you give up your independence, getting it back is almost impossible. You adapt because you have to. You stop arguing when they tell you what's for dinner. You stop asking to go for a walk whenever you feel like it. You learn to fit into their system. But in the process, you start losing yourself. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you truly ready to give up the small freedoms that make life feel like it's yours? Because once they're gone, you'll miss them far more than you ever thought you would. The second regret is something I wasn't prepared for: feeling forgotten. One of the hardest truths about moving into a nursing home is realizing that the world outside keeps moving without you. When I first arrived, my family reassured me that they'd visit often. And at first, they did. My daughter came by once a week. My grandchildren visited on weekends. For a little while, it felt like I still had a connection to my old life. But as the months went by, the visits became less frequent. My daughter started calling instead of coming by. My grandchildren got busy with school and work. Holidays were the hardest Everyone promised they'd come. But somehow, plans always changed at the last minute. And suddenly, I found myself sitting alone in the common room, watching other residents stare at the door, hoping that today would be the day someone remembered them. It wasn't that my family stopped loving me. Life just got in the way. When you're not around every day, it's easy for people to assume you're fine, that you're adjusting, that you don't need as much attention. But the truth is, the longer you're in a nursing home, the easier it is for people to forget just how much you still need them. I remember one evening sitting in my room, holding my phone, debating whether to call my son. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to remind him that I was here waiting for a visit that might never come. So I put the phone down. And that's when it hit me. This was my life now. Watching the days go by, hoping someone would remember to include me. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, ask yourself, are you prepared for the loneliness? Because no matter how much your family loves you, once you're out of sight, it's all too easy to become out of mind. The third regret is losing my sense of purpose. When I moved into the nursing home, I thought I was just changing where I lived. I didn't realize I was also changing why I lived. At home, I had responsibilities, hobbies, and routines. I had reasons to get up every morning. Even the small things, watering the plants, making my own coffee, tidying up my space, gave me a sense of purpose. But in the nursing home, those daily rituals disappeared. Meals were made for me. Cleaning was done by someone else. The plants, they weren't mine to take care of anymore. At first, I told myself it would be nice to finally relax. No more chores, no more responsibilities, just rest. But after a few weeks, I realized something was missing. The days felt long, stretched out with nothing to do, but wait, I saw it in other residents too. People who had once been full of energy now spent their days sitting, staring, waiting for time to pass. There was a man named George, 84 years old, who had been a carpenter his entire life. At home, he was always fixing things, building little projects in his garage. But here, there were no tools, no projects, nothing for him to create. I watched as he slowly withdrew. His hands, once strong and skilled, now idle in his lap. "I feel useless," he told me one day, and I knew exactly what he meant. When you no longer have something to care for, something to work toward, life starts to lose its meaning. The mind slows down, the body follows. And soon you start feeling like just another resident in a place where time moves, but nothing really changes. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, what gives your life meaning? Because once you move in, finding purpose isn't as simple as just filling your time. It's about fighting to hold on to the things that make you feel alive. The fourth regret was something I never expected. My health declined faster than I ever imagined. Before I moved into the nursing home, I was doing well for my age. I wasn't running marathons, but I could still take care of myself. I went for walks. I cooked my meals. I kept busy. But once I moved in, everything changed. At first, it seemed like I was just taking it easy. Meals were brought to me, and I didn't need to stand in the kitchen anymore. If I needed something, I just pushed a button and someone would come help. What I didn't realize was that the less I did for myself, the weaker I became. I stopped moving as much. My legs felt stiffer. I sat more than I used to. And before I knew it, getting up from a chair felt like a chore. The muscles I had spent years maintaining were disappearing faster than I ever thought possible. And it wasn't just me. I saw it in others too. People who walked in on their own 2 feet were soon relying on wheelchairs. People who had been independent suddenly needed help with things they'd never struggled with before. The more help we were given, the more we seemed to need it. I remember my neighbor, Sophia, an 81-year-old woman who was lively when she first arrived. She insisted she wasn't going to slow down just because of her age. But after a few months, she wasn't walking as much. Then came the walker, then the wheelchair. One day she looked at me and said, "I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I aged 10 years in just a few months." And that's exactly what it felt like. When you stop using your body, you start losing it. If I had known how quickly I would lose my strength, I would have fought harder to keep moving, to stay active, to push myself, even when I didn't feel like it. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, will you still have the motivation to keep your body strong when everything is set up to make life effortless? Because once you slow down, getting back up isn't as easy as you might think. The 5th regret is one many people don't think about until it's too late: the loss of privacy and dignity. At home, I had my own space. I could close my bedroom door, sit in silence if I wanted, and do things on my own terms. But in a nursing home, privacy is a luxury you don't always get to keep. From the moment I arrived, I felt like I was constantly being watched. Staff coming in and out, scheduled room checks, shared spaces where you're rarely ever alone. Even simple things like getting dressed or using the bathroom often required someone's assistance. And while I understood they were just doing their jobs, it's not easy to accept help for things you've done independently your entire life. Then there's the issue of roommates. Not everyone gets a private room, and sharing your space with someone you didn't choose can be frustrating. I was lucky to have a kind roommate, but others weren't as fortunate. Some shared rooms with people who were loud, unclean, or struggling with cognitive issues that made sleeping nearly impossible. No matter how much you try to make your room feel like home, it never truly is. Dignity is a hard thing to lose, and I didn't realize how much of mine I'd have to surrender until I was already there. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you prepared to give up the privacy and control you've had your entire life? Because once it's gone, it's hard to get it back. Finally, my 6th regret, realizing that leaving is much harder than you think. When I first moved into the nursing home, I told myself it was temporary. I thought I'd give it a try, and if I didn't like it, I could always leave. But what I didn't realize was just how hard it would be to get out once I was in. At first, it seemed simple, but home wasn't the same anymore. My house sat empty. My children had already started making changes, selling things they thought I wouldn't need, even considering renting the place out. When I brought up the idea of returning, they hesitated. "Are you sure you can manage on your own?" they asked. "Wouldn't it be safer to stay?" And then there was me, not as strong as I used to be. After months of living in a place where I didn't have to cook, clean, or even walk very far, my independence had slipped away. The fear of not being able to manage kept me stuck. I met others who had the same experience. They thought they'd try the nursing home for a little while, only to realize that leaving wasn't as easy as they thought. That's the part no one tells you. Moving in feels like a decision you can reverse, but for most people, it isn't. The nursing home slowly becomes your whole world. And before you know it, The life you once knew feels like a distant memory. If you're considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you prepared for the possibility that once you go in, leaving might not be as simple as you think? Looking back, I don't regret growing older, but I do regret believing that a nursing home was my only option. I walked in expecting comfort, safety, and a better quality of life. What I found was a world that slowly took away my independence, my privacy, my purpose, and even my sense of self. Does that mean all nursing homes are bad? No. Some people genuinely need the level of care they provide. But before you make that decision, think carefully about what you're giving up. If I could do it over, I would have fought harder to stay in my own home, explored more ways to get help without giving up my freedom, and made sure I truly needed to be there before making such a permanent move. If you're facing this decision, I hope you take the time to ask yourself, is this truly what's best for me? Or is it just what seems easiest right now? Because the life you have today, your routines, your independence, your choices, is worth holding on to for as long as you can. Thank you for joining me today. If you found this video helpful, please like it, subscribe to Timeless Wisdom, and share it with someone who might need to hear these words. Your support helps us keep creating thoughtful content like this. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.